Everybody. Welcome to the Mindplex podcast. We're very excited today to have Ryan Sternlicht. Hi, Ryan. Ryan.
Hello.
And I don't know Ryan a while. He is an expert in many things, and we have worked together on some virtual reality projects, artificial intelligence projects, neurotech, all sorts of exciting things. Over the years, it's been exciting for me to learn from him. And so when it was time to start covering VR and XR in these shows, I was like, oh, I know the person to call for sure. So he came on before telling us about the latest in headgear for VR. And we looked at the Apple Vision Pro and all the latest headgear. And you can find that on the show on our channel. And today we're going to talk about the AI 3D revolution. When he got back from GDC and was telling me about all the stuff he saw, basically, there is a revolution that has happened. It is clear in scanning and rendering. AI has made it so you can not only do very high quality scans with your phone now, but you can even re-render your own scans into better models with this technology. And so that's new and exciting. And I thought, that's it. We've got to do a show on that. That counts. And I will let Ryan take it away and tell us a little bit more about yourself, Ryan, and then jump into this amazing shit that you saw at GDC this year.
Yep. Thank you so much, Lisa. So, I'm Ryan Sternlicht. I was on here a few weeks ago, or now,
Months
wow, 2
ago.
months
Yeah.
ago.
Time
Um,
flies.
uh, yeah. Um, uh, and I do a lot of different research for different people, as well as I help advise people on different upcoming technologies quite a bit. So these days, that mostly is focused around AI, VR, different types of neurotech and brain computer interface stuff, as well as some 3D manufacturing and different forms of like how this stuff integrates with the consumer side, but also the manufacturing or business side, different stuff. Um, and
Great. Well,
recently I went to GDC to check. I've gone to GDC, this one my ninth year.
yes.
Um, and
So
I
let's jump
always
right in. I really want to know, I want to jump right in and talk about these one by one because there's a lot to
yeah,
talk about. There's basically three or four or five, I think, specific technologies that
yeah,
I really wanted to make sure that we covered.
yeah,
So let's start off. Well, you can let us know where to start off,
yeah,
whether it's
yeah.
the scanning or
So
the rendering, probably the scanning.
yeah. Or okay, let's do the scanning one. First. Okay. So 3D scanning. So I think a lot of people here have heard of 3D scanning in some form, whether it's, oh, we 3D scanned a building, or we are turning a object in real life into a 3D model for putting in a video game, or for historical preservation is actually one of the most critical uses of 3D scanning. And there, over the past like 20 years, it's changed a lot. I first got started 3D scanning back in 2013 when I first learned about the basics of what is kind of the back end of all this, which is photogrammetry, which is creating 3D models from photos, by using triangulation between photos to find the distance to different points. Um,
I
and then um, I talked with a number of companies at GDC, and um, there's been a lot of different changes in the past year or so. Like, the technology I was using in 2013, it would take me a week to get a 3D scan of my head, with about 300 photos. I did take a video going around my head with my phone. I'd con I'd convert that video to a set of photos. Then I'd use a thing called structure from motion, SFM, to convert that into a point cloud that which then needed to be converted into a 3D model mesh. This
Right,
took about a week
so
to do.
let's wait and to compare the 3
Uh,
different kinds of scans
yeah,
like we're going to, because I really want you to jump in and
yeah.
tell us about the new stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
So
So you got
let
Curie Engine
yeah.
here.
Yeah, so this was one of the companies at GDC, and they're one of the bigger players in a phone-based 3D scanning tool set. They have been around for, I think, a few years now, um, and they their stuff is really, really cool in that it is very, very high quality for phone-based stuff because instead of doing any processing really on your phone, it uploads it to their cloud where it can be processed much more efficiently. And some of the biggest things that for years were difficult to do with photogrammetry is things like PBRs, physically based rendering and textures, which that is things like color, reflection, the normal maps, pretty much all this stuff that makes something look like a real object and not just a blob in that's of a certain shape. Um, they have implemented multiple different forms of 3D scanning pipelines, including stuff that utilizes the LiDAR scanners on iPhones. You can use video to photo set conversion. You can 3D scan small objects. You can scan rooms. It is very, very cool. And
And the
they have
distinction
a
is that if your phone isn't set up, it utilizes everything that your phone has, but if your phone doesn't have the processing power, it makes
yeah,
up for it on the cloud. Is that what I'm
yeah,
hearing? Okay.
pretty to a degree. So most phones cannot process a 3D scan. Don't They can render one once it's processed, but they can't process it directly. So it has to be uploaded to the cloud, which a lot of this stuff, no one would ever do something like this about 5 years ago to do free exports of 3D scans because the amount of processing required was so substantial that you you just would be losing money hand over foot because of how inefficient it was. But now
Well, there was
there's
a
a
company doing it. Remember at the beginning of
yeah.
the pandemic, that company that I was doing all those scans
Yeah,
with my
yeah,
phone,
they were
and then
one
it
of
it
the
got
first.
bought and they just went away. You
Yeah.
don't happen to remember their name, do you? I can't remember their
That
name,
that's
but
I was trying to find it. I
it's really
can't
hard.
remember, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I couldn't find it, but that was years ago, that was,
Yeah,
like, 2021, and they got
yeah,
bought, and I haven't seen the technology
yeah,
pop up, anywhere else, so but the
yeah,
thing that they did was that depending on how you did your scan, it might not upload. It was a huge undertaking
yeah,
to do the
yeah,
scan, with your phone. You had to walk around the image and over again and do all that stuff. And basically, it's not such an arduous process now.
Yeah.
doing the scan, right? That's completely
Yes,
different when
yes,
you use your phone to do a scan. So it kind
yeah.
of
It's
explain that
like
difference too, because that's a big
yeah,
difference.
yeah. So this actually kind of explains some of the stuff they're doing. So there is a paid model. It's not
Uh,
very expensive for the quality of stuff it's doing, but things like with the free one, you do get LiDAR room scanning. Um, you're able to use different things like low poly conversion, which is very valuable if you want to use the model. With the paid version, you get retopology with quad mesh, which is a very valuable thing, and PBR materials. And then this AI powered featureless object mode. So this is the big problem for a long time with 3D scanning stuff was reflective, transparent, and translucent materials. Because the way a lot of this stuff was originally processed, it couldn't handle that sort of stuff very well. So they, over the years, different places have gotten much better at 3D scanning and understanding how to do different things to mitigate those issues. So there's for 3D printing, you this is an example of kind of the workflow you go through to do some of these things where you would take video of a person's head, convert it into a set of photos, then you'd edit it in 3D modeling software, then you could 3D print it, and you could this used to be weeks long process to do all of this. With some of the tools you have now, you can do this in a matter of hours. Like, here's a brick, and you can put it in a game. You could 3D scan objects you really love, but you're worried about breaking. 3D scan them, 3D print them, and then paint them. And you can do that in an afternoon now. That is was not really possible before. Um, so
so
doing a lot.
what are they doing to they it's with the AI, it's a number of different AI
Yes, yeah, and
techniques that they're
let's
using,
get
right?
into that to actually
Okay.
talk a bit about some of this stuff they're doing. So the main things that are happening right now in the past year and a half, some new AI driven photogrammetry models that are using LLMs and a lot of different new AI tools because we everyone's seen the proliferation of the new AIs in the past couple of years, and of course that stuff would be applied to different things such as photogrammetry. So the one of the main companies that's been pushing this is Nvidia, and Microsoft have both been doing stuff. So this is actually that is not a video. That is a 3D model made from scans of images. So this is using a thing called NeRFs, which are neural radiance fields. It uses a neural model to um, do um, pretty much more advanced comparison of the information between the two images to get better 3D depth data, color data, and other types of stuff. So it it has all of these 3D scanning technologies have a very similar first 2 or 3 steps of you take photos, figure out where they are in space, then you process them. But this processing is what's completely changed in the past year and a half. Um, but that because those first 2 steps are the same as they were 10, 15 years ago, you can still reprocess old photos and videos for 3D scans because that process has not changed in 20 years, which is really cool. So, a lot of people like me have been starting to try and find our old 3D scans to reprocess. Um,
So they're backwards compatible.
Yes, which is kinda insane that you
It
can
is. I'm
y
surprised.
yeah, and the different types of so, let me find
So
the
a
correct
question that was asked earlier in the week when I was
oh,
researching this is
uh,
this anything like upscaling when it's adding information? Is it getting more information? My question is it getting more information out of the file that's there, more point information, or is it doing AI stuff to kind of upscale it just to make it look better?
it I I
Or
would
both?
say it's kind of in between, like, I wouldn't say it's upscaling, like, you can actually do that. You could apply a resolution upscaler at the beginning,
Right, right. I know you
bu
could do that,
but
but that's not what
yeah.
they're doing, right?
No, no,
Okay.
this is generally the issue with NeRFs for a while, like, this was first kinda designed NeRFs were first, done a few years ago, but they were still pretty slow. They were a lot faster than the old stuff, like, the stuff that took me a week to do, a NeRF would take about
Right.
50 hours,
Now the
but
nerfs re yeah,
yeah.
the nerfs require, GPUs, a lot of GPUs, right?
Or photogrammetry always has required GPUs.
So all
Like
3 of the systems
yeah,
require GPUs.
yeah.
Okay.
All photogrammetry, pretty much all 3D scanning is incredibly GPU intensive, um, both for processing, but often it's also pretty hard for the rendering. Like, one of the places I help out in SF Noise Bridge Hackerspace, we got a really high-end 3D scan of our space about 7 years ago. Um, and even on a really, really top of the line $10,000 computer, it would crash that computer because the file was so big and there was so much information that it would trying to render all at once that it would just crash the computer outright every single time. Um,
Okay, so
and
this makes sense. So it's
yeah,
actually like the way that things are processed, it's being done more efficiently in a
yes,
way that's not only gonna make a better model, but it's gonna render better, it's gonna be
yeah,
less susceptible to things like crashes
yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah. So this this stuff is very cool. Then like there's people still get kind of confused about NeRFs versus photogrammetry. Like NeRFs is pretty much a AI or a more advanced AI driven photogrammetry methodology.
Right, that
So
title's a weird
yeah,
title, right? Because it's not really
yeah,
versus, it's
yeah,
right?
it's
It's not
on
versus,
top
one's a
of
subset of the other.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
all
and
photogrammetry, and then it's just whether it's
yeah.
literally someone walking
Yeah.
around with a camera taking pictures or, um,
Yeah. So,
you
like,
know
this is actually a great image of the, in essence, usually second step or third step of photogrammetry and of NeRFs and of what we'll talk about in just a minute. This is where you're figuring out the view perspectives of each of the images that you are then going to process. So, you take you usually photogrammetry is done on with an outside in methodology where the object you're scanning is inside of your perspective of the camera. So you walk around the object. But you can flip it the opposite way and do like room scans where you're doing inside to out, which also
Yeah.
gets confusing because they use the same terminology in both VR and motion capture, for different things, but they are generally mean the same thing of what the camera perspective is. Um, so
Yeah,
this
so
is
that's part of the fun in VR a lot of times is you're inside a large object. You know,
yeah,
at those Burning Man exhibits and stuff, we were literally flying
yeah,
around inside the exhibits. So,
yeah,
I think you would that would be pretty useful to scan from the inside, or if you were making a building, you'd do an outside scan and inside scan.
yeah, yeah. So this is kind of actually a interesting way of showing what a basic point cloud kind of looks like. So this has NeRFs and photogrammetry. So point clouds are what you generally get out of this information, which point clouds are not that useful in a lot of situations currently because they don't have any geometry. Point clouds are, but the thing is, if your point cloud is dense enough, it will look indistinguishable from geometry. But generally, it looks kind of like this. It looks very blobby and it has no color to it. It has no reflection. It's just a matte blob.
Yeah.
So that's you're losing a lot of information that those images had when you just have the base like photogrammetry and point cloud. But AI has really gone a long different distance in allowing you to get all that information back and also infer information that you didn't fully have. So, the next technology that kind of came out recently is Gaussian splatting for so or actually wait, that one's in just a sec. First this. So this is what came out a little while ago, back in August of last year, that was really, really interesting. This was taking a lot of the technology that um NeRFs had, which was NeRFs were still pretty slow at the time. And figuring out what can we do instead of NeRFs that's more efficient. And that was 3D Gaussian splatting, which I'm trying to find
So how is
the
this implemented? Like, where is somebody gonna
yeah.
see this in
Ah,
action?
okay. So NeRF versus 3D. Here we
Ah,
go.
okay.
So um they both use n- different types of AI models. So the 3D Gaussian is it's pretty hard to explain in simple terms of it uses a lot more parameters um related to the information to process it. So
Yeah, so
it
it's using machine learning to process.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So it
fine. We don't have to
has
go into the math. The point
yeah.
is it
Let
uses
me
math to and
yeah.
machine learning to
Let
process
me
it.
skip
Now,
the
if you're in a
math.
virtual world and the objects are around you, all the different objects, they could have all been made different ways, right? One
Yeah.
might have been a
Oh yeah.
scan, one might be Gaussian splatting, one might be a NeRF. And the point is
Yeah,
once it's done and rendered, it's just a rendered object in the world at that
yes,
point, right?
yes, but
Looking
they
good, looking better, but
but the other thing with a lot of these is there is a, issue a bit with a lot of these, which, yeah, so as this actually is a great demo of the steps to it. So you have your ground truth 3D model image set, which there are standard image sets. This is one of them, this bike. Um, you do structure from motion, which this is what I used to use. This is what I usually got after a week
when
of
you said
process.
standard image set, you mean like a bike is a bike is a bike so that all the AIs will know what a bike is? Or what do you mean
Or
standard
it's
image set?
literally a image set that everyone can use as a comparison or benchmark for their um uh 3D modeling. So
Okay.
uh
Okay, so it's
you'll
not an AI thing, it's a 3D modeling thing.
yeah, or
Yeah.
this is just in general. Every industry has a benchmark set.
Right, I'm talking about the one that you're talking about right now,
Yes,
that
yes. This
benchmark
is
set.
a one specifically for 3D scanning
Okay.
and for photogrammetry. So this is what a lot of people use. And yeah, so here's an example of multiple different systems all rendering the same bike scene using different tool sets. So that and PSNR, that is the I can't remember but what the P is, but it's like signal noise ratio, which the high in this case, the higher the number, the better. The more it's realistic. And then if you look at these things, these have to do with their render time, um, and training time and stuff. So like SMERF, which used to be peak signal to
Yeah,
noise
peak
ratio.
signal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rainer.
Um, it's MIP-NeRF used to be one of the best variants of this a few months ago, and it took 48 hours to train, which is not bad, but it's not great. Then you get into some of these things
To train
like
what? Well, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? To train it to know
to
what a bike is?
or
We're still
no,
talking about the
uh,
bike? No.
yeah, or we're talking about the 3D scan. Pretty much, it took 48 hours to process this 3D scan, um,
Of
which,
a bike. Of what?
yeah, uh,
You're
so,
just talking about a scan in general on the system, that it took 2
y
days to process a scan.
yes,
Okay.
um,
Okay, great.
and give you an output,
Okay.
which because these are using AI, they are considered training. Um, and then you can see like this is the same scene, but it only took 51 minutes and it has a better PSNR than the one that took 48 hours.
So it's
That,
better models
yeah,
faster.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, which, and like the difference in when these two technologies released is about 8 months. So that's about a like order like 48 times faster in 6 months, which that's pretty crazy.
And so
And
again, which 2 things are
yeah.
we comparing now? The Gaussian splatting and the nerfing or
So NeRFs
this
and
whole thing?
Gaussian splatting. Yeah.
Okay. So the nerf is the fast one, right? Just checking.
No, Gaussian splatting in this case.
Oh, in this case is the faster one.
Yes.
But I thought we were
Um
saying before, so it matters what you're processing as far as which one's going to be better for that
yes.
kind of model?
They
Ah,
yes.
okay.
Um And a lot of these are all very easy to like run yourself. Like you can get GitHub models of a lot of these. But the thing is in the past like month or two, a lot of this is like stuff is changing really, really dang fast. So let me find the recent one. So um this the one from 2 days ago? Yeah, April 8th, 2024. Like this stuff is like improving every week, basically. So one of the biggest issues with Gaussian splatting compared to NeRFs has been there's been a lot of blurring issues in certain parts of a scene.
Mhm.
And there's in just last week, was a new proposed methodology to um fix or like solve some of this problem, which is doing this, which is in essence improving processing on certain parts of the scene and slightly modifying the model
I was
for
gonna
those
say, there's a little
yeah
bit that smells like upscaling to me in the sense that you're making up for information you don't have in those areas. So I know
or
the blurry areas are where they don't have enough pictures to put it together now. When I was literally taking pictures with our friend Bernice
yeah
uh, with a camera in the beginning, okay? And when you got your model back, and you ended up doing things 2 or 3 times because you weren't sure if you were like, "Oh, did I get that angle?" And then you
yeah
would try to come up with methods of making sure you got every angle, and it was really hard. You would get the model back and you would see what you missed because there would be these blurry
yeah
areas that you missed. So are you saying that like this is a way of using math to to fix that missing information, or is it actually deriving that information from the information that it has instead of sort of trying to patch it up and make it look better? It's actually getting the information from somewhere else in the file to
yeah
fill that in.
it's pretty much running a like better so generally you run an entire scene on a single model per se, but the thing is models are very flexible. So in this case it's looking at the model, figuring out it, like to kind like
What are
simplify
we
it,
looking at? What is that right now? What are we
it's
looking at?
figuring out which areas are having issues being rendered, and then it's
Ah, the blurry stuff we were
reprocessing
talking about. Yeah, okay.
those images. So, um, uh, yeah, the um, yeah, it's yeah. So
So it
they
sounds like a little of
add,
both, to be honest, right? It sounds like a
yeah,
little bit
yeah,
of using the information you have in different ways with math, and then using AI to smooth it to make it look right, what you
yeah,
think is right, and it's
yeah,
comparing what it thinks is right
yeah,
to
yeah.
something.
So, um, but I want to talk about one that is really cool on top of this, which is SMERF, which is a modification of NeRFs specifically for real-time large-scale visualizations because NeRFs can be kind of hard to render at times. So they're called streamable memory efficient radiance fields. Um and this
Uh,
technology
so it's nerfs
is
with a buffer.
kind of
There's a streaming nerf. Okay.
yeah. So, let me find the right one. Ah, here we go. Here's the actual thing. So, the this is a running in real this can be running in real time on a phone, which you used to not be able to run a 3D scan this nice on a phone. Like, this was done using a similar photo
You'd
set
you'd have to
that
make a
you'd run.
video out of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
to look at it on your phone. Yeah.
or yeah, or no, not a video. No, you can walk around this space. This is a full 3D scan
No, no, I'm
that
saying
you can.
in the olden days, if you wanted it
Yeah.
to run on your phone, we had to generate MP4s of the
Yes,
model
yes,
and just look at
yeah,
it and be like, "Yep,
yep,
that's my
yeah,
model." You weren't doing shit with it, but you
yeah,
could look at it. Yeah. So
yeah.
this is something you can walk around this is something you can go in with a headset, or what are you saying?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Headset, there's so that like, this is pretty so here are some of the different well-known scenes, so let's use laptop with strong GPU. Uh, oh, yeah, this is going to take just a sec to
I
process.
was gonna say,
Do.
don't you don't pick that one.
Yeah.
Still pretty fast though. Alright.
This is running in real time on my computer right now at 240 frames per second, and
Pretty
I
cool.
can move, I can zoom in. Can I move around in this
Now
one?
this is running
Because
in the browser, or what is this actually running in right
yeah,
now?
yeah,
Okay.
this is running
So
in
this
the
is
browser.
there's a plugin. There's a SMERF plugin or something for running
Yeah,
these in the browser? Okay.
yes, but you can also view this in a Apple Vision Pro, any number of different tools, and the thing
What's the
is
actual file format that you're looking at right now?
that one for this, I am not sure. I'd have to look at the back end,
You
but,
can't just look at the end of the URL and see the name of the file format? See, I can't see it because it cuts
uh,
off.
yeah, I'm not sure.
You can't I'll just go to the
Look at
end.
this is running an app,
Ah,
so,
alright.
uh,
Sometimes if you get to the
yeah,
end, it'll have
nah,
it. Okay. So it's
yeah,
not a, so that it could but it could be different formats, is what you're
yeah,
saying. It's not like a
yes,
native format, it's one of those formats that you can generate all the
yeah,
different formats that go in and out of Unity and stuff like that.
yeah, but,
Cool.
um, yeah, let's see with the laptop one. That will
So
take a minute, but
so that's
so the
real-time scanning. That's let's see,
so
that's sort of everything all at once in that model we just saw, right? Maybe
yeah,
the error correction
so
and stuff like that?
okay, this is like this one has some issues right now running, but um the other thing that is really cool with NeRFs and 3D Gaussian splatting is how it handles transparency and reflections. Because view-based reflections are something photogrammetry never used to even dream of handling. So, see, you can see the reflection of that pillow in that TV, and right now it's a bit wonky, but when things are processed correctly, you can have view dependent reflections of other things in the scene.
So and this gets
Which
into the real-time physics that
yeah, yeah,
that are
if
built in now to some of these
yeah,
scans, right? That's new.
yeah,
That's an AI thing. That wasn't
yeah.
there before.
So yeah,
Tell
you
us about
can
that.
see yeah. So the amount of this is able to understand a lot more of, in essence, photonics, like light interactions, light physics, which like we aren't
And it's
to the
built
point.
in to the point
Yeah.
where if you are the objects identified or something so they know how to reflect? I mean, how do you
So
enable that depending on what system you're using?
yeah, like here's a really cool one. Look at this wine glass. A old 3D scan would never be able to handle doing this at all. This wine glass would just be an opaque object. Um,
Oh, you're saying it
yeah.
literally couldn't scan transparent objects
Or
before. It
it
was an
couldn't
issue.
process that it was transparent.
Well,
It
whatever, it
would
didn't come out right in
yeah,
the end. You couldn't do
yeah,
it. You would be like, "Where's
yeah,
my glass?" Okay.
yeah,
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 I remember that because they had, you would have to make your glass, blue or, you'd
yeah.
give it some transparent like color so you knew it was a glass. But I didn't realize that it couldn't be transparent. See, I didn't realize. I thought that was just an artistic choice at the time. I didn't realize it didn't, you don't think about it. Nothing's transparent. Um,
Yeah,
so
this
this real-time error correction for these models, this is a good time to talk about how it goes into 3D printing
yeah.
because there's
Oh,
the connection. I think when the revolution light went on in my head, it was when it was the combination of the real-time physics and things like that for the 3D models, and then the ability to get all that information back out and into meat space world if you wanted versions of your objects that you could hold
oh.
in your hand, and then they're printed out faster and better than ever. So tell us
Oh,
about all
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so when you have tools this powerful, you can use them for so much because a lot of people have wanted to be able to create things a lot easier. 3D printing has come a long way compared to what it used to be. But it generally had a lot of issues with speed, accuracy, and cost. Um, but now it is getting to the point where all of those are not really an issue anymore. With speed, during the pandemic, actually, a bunch of 3D printing people were like, we have good quality now, but it's slow. Why don't we all try to do things faster? And they did. So the standard 3D printing benchmark object called a benchy, um, a normal 3D printer in 2020 took about an hour 30 to print a decent one. Then people were like, let's print this as fast as possible. So they created a thing called the speedboat race to see who can print this fastest. And right now, the world record is about 2 minutes to do this 3D print, which is
Okay.
insane. The problem is the quality is kind of lost, but the algorithms they've used to get this fast actually mean that the quality version, instead of being an hour and a half now, is about 30 minutes. On everyday home 3D printers, not on high-end machines.
Right, and that's because the
Um,
error correction that
yes,
you were talking
and
about.
a lot of this error correction for depending on the 3D printer is in essence machine learning and like literally running a algorithm on the data of the 3D model to understand the literal physics of how the machine is going to be moving
Mhm.
and correcting for momentum is the big thing. So
Hmm.
we're moving the 3D printer is moving so fast now that it it can overshoot things.
Momentum.
Yes.
Interesting. So
Yes.
actually, while the nozzle is going from one dot to the
Yeah.
next dot, that's a thing that has
Yeah.
properties and might make a boo-boo, like, while it's moving over or something, depending on the shape of the object, right? Like, when you watch one of these things get made, and
Yeah.
you're seeing it literally, it's like a little liquid laser doing it, well, it depends on what kind of printer it is, but the point is they can actually predict, depending on the object, where those errors are going to be when printed fast and then
Yeah.
adjust for it in the processing. But I'm still it's interesting. So they have to do all that. They have to fix all that stuff before it gets to the printer, because by the time it's
Yes.
being printed, it's got to know it's just going to come out like it is. So did it? Was it? It must have taken. Was it machine learning to do that error correction? How did they eventually? Or what's
Some
used
pe
for that?
It depends a lot.
Oh, it was
So,
different stuff. Okay.
yeah. So, like, here's a example of a 2-minute benchy. Like, the problem is less that you won't be able to actually see this thing printing at the actual speed it's really going because it's faster than the camera can capture for the most part. Um, uh, so this is right now it's just calibrating itself. Now it's printing. You The camera can't actually capture how fast it
Oh my
is
god,
moving. Like
it's
this
so
is
fast
real
compared to
time.
how they
That's
used to
why.
be.
Yeah, but the amount of forces on this machine are kind of crazy. It's Yeah, so you can see the actual real world counter and the machine. It's And this is only about a $400 machine with probably $400 in mods on it. Um, but yeah, so AI processing has a number of companies now have little AI algorithms kind of built into the 3D printing process pipeline
Uh-huh.
and to help do this stuff faster. It is
It's so strong, I'm
absolutely
surprised it doesn't
insane.
break. I'm surprised it can hold on,
Oh yeah,
as it's, so that was the
yeah,
first 2-minute benchy, huh? And when
of
did
course.
that happen? That happened 2
This
months ago.
was 2 months ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I'm sad that this is not running
Oh, yeah, yeah, let's
correctly,
just
but
that's okay.
yeah, I oh,
So let's
I
move
mean,
on. So we were talking
yeah,
about 3D printed objects, and basically it's interesting to me that this converts into wearables and virtual clothing, that, or you know, actual um actual meat space clothing, and that whole connection, and the error correction was a big part of that too, you were telling me, because well, of course, if it's, you're trying to be fashionable, if it's clothing, it's got to look good, it's got to look nice. And then what's neat is you could take your real clothing and make a 3D scan it, bring it into your virtual world, or you could take a virtual world object that somebody's wearing and be like, "Oh, I think I want an actual
yeah,
jacket of that." And then you could take it out and have it, send it somewhere and have the jacket made. So that's here. That's a thing. And
yeah, and
tell us about the
uh,
stuff you saw at GDC, with
yeah,
that stuff.
so Um, one of there's a few companies working on clothing. There's like two big ones. There is Marvelous Designer and Style 3D, both of which are just now really starting to try to do a lot more AI stuff with being able to take drawn images of clothes and turn it into 3D models. They At GDC, they didn't have any demos, but they did say they were trying to work on that stuff. Because for video game characters, if you wanted to be like, ooh, I drew these really cool clothes, it would be really cool if I could put them on my character. But for a long time, you had to go through a bunch of steps to make
Yeah.
clothes for 3D characters, or to make them such that you can actually cut and sew them in real life. Um, and there's, but the other side of, other than clothes, trying to get better avatars has been a big deal. And That is actually one of the really cool things I saw at GDC. Pretty much on the very first day, it would just here is some really cool um stuff related to getting better avatars into video games using AI. Um so there's a few companies working on this, but the most notable is called Demos Tech. Um,
And
they've been around for quite a while, um, and
are you sharing your
they
screen right now?
oh,
Because we didn't.
yeah,
It,
I
there
yeah,
we go.
okay, so they had to talk at GDC on the first day that I went to that was absolutely fantastic, talking about how they got their chat avatar system, which I'll show you in a minute, into a game. So this game, Earth Revival, which is a PC and mobile game, they put their avatar creator in this game to both generate NPCs as well as improve the character creators for its users. Um, so this is all using
But what, sticking
LLMs.
LLMs in the character creators?
Yes,
Okay.
or it's using actually three different sets of AI pipelines. So there's the Dream Face, which is the one where they're actually Dream Face is one of the back end parts of um the chat avatar system. Then they're using some search methodology like AI search and modification tools, and then they also have a image to 3D model set of tools that they're working on. And like I'll show I I sadly don't have this game currently, but I can show um like some of Demos's stuff. So the reason Demos can make such high end avatars is because they have a background in the VFX industry of 3D scanning faces. They have thousands of faces that they've 3D scanned over the years to, and then they trained a model on all their faces they've scanned. They've actually trained many different models. So doing face replacement, they did facial reconstruction stuff. Um, and they have a very high end lighting kit. So they they are really cool with this stuff. And they have been able to do different types of um yeah, let's see. Oh, I think one of the viewing oh, there we go. Um being able to let's see. Um
So you can use their tools to and give them a picture, and it will
yeah.
create this model, and then you export it back out and import it
Yeah.
into whatever you want it for, right?
Yes, but they've made it much easier using this tool called Hyperhuman with or Hyperhuman is a project series. And Chat Avatar is one of them where you can either drag an image into it um so you so like here's the original image someone uploaded, which that looks like it would generated using a GAN system. Then you upload that image, it generates the base head shape, and then it generates the skin mask for it. And so literally you can like use a text generation tool to generate an image, upload that, or you can actually just directly um uh, upload like facial images of real faces, do it, or let me find one of the text-based ones. Um,
Well, they let you give some prompts too. I was messing around with it
yeah,
a little bit. So you give it your picture and then you give it the prompts. And I couldn't
yeah,
get I got weird models out of it, but I was giving it weird pictures.
yeah,
Um that I was it
oh,
was an angle and the lighting was weird. So you really do need a photograph that shows, from the front
yeah,
that shows you straight on to get a good result. But then the
yeah.
results are pretty
But then
impressive.
you can also just say use you can also just use text. So like if I generate from text, so let's see, um 25 old um man, um um uh uh let's
So
see.
this is great.
uh,
This is actually creating a 3D model just from text, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
let's see. Oh wait, I forgot it requires sign in. I can't do it at the moment,
Uh,
but I'll but the other project they have right now, which this is only their early beta, right now it's only a multimodal 3D search engine. It works pretty well. You can upload an image and it will search all the different web 3D databases to find what type of um model you want. But the thing is this is their point 1 beta. At GDC, they showed their 1.0, which is a 3D model generative AI, which this is something that um, they've people have wanted for a very long time. So Demos has shown a few different things. So they literally you upload an image and then it will generate a 3D model of that object that you can then immediately export and like open. So that was in less than a minute taken from a image to a real 3D model. And they are able to do this really, really easily. Right now, they have a closed beta, but they're hoping to open this up in the near future. Um, and um, yeah, so uh, I also wanted to show like what those chat avatar things you saw earlier. Those were just the skin meshes that
mhm.
when they are outside of something being used. So
Oh,
when
right. It
you're
wasn't the whole avatar. It was just the
yeah, that would just
head
the
and
head,
skin.
but
Yeah.
you can attach it in Unity, Unreal, Blender to actual 3D models, and then you can have them fully rigged. So facial rigging, which then after you do that, you can use ARKit or any number of other real-time facial capture tools to convert it and allow you to use it. So this this pipeline used to be incredibly complex, but now there's automated rigging tools for rigging faces. There's things like AR kit and different types of tools for facial motion capture, which facial
And
motion capture has gone through a lot in the past about 3 years. A big part of this actually is due to VTubing and different people wanting to use facial motion capture in real time. Uh, it all actually started about 10 years ago with a thing called Face Rig, which was a like Steam like app you could use that allowed you to do webcam based facial tracking and apply it to an avatar. Then when Apple released the iPhone 10 and the facial unlock system, that tool set actually is very, very good for facial motion capture. So many people started playing around with, hey, can we use an iPhone to do facial motion capture? And yes, and they actually use it in Hollywood at this point. Literally just a iPhone on a head rig um that um yeah,
but there's
like
AI helping that out, right? I mean, that
yes,
the reason why
a
that
lot of
works.
it based off different like AI to help identify the features of the face and then focus on tracking those features in real time. It and on that subject, there was actually another really cool thing at um, GDC, which was um, real time markerless.
Motion
Um,
capture, great. Yeah, that
yeah,
was the last thing that was the thing I wanted to make sure that we covered.
yep, yeah. So I got to do a demo of a company called AR-51's markerless
Yeah,
motion capture. I'm
it's
going to
pretty
be
incredible what
uploading
they're
a
doing.
video later on and sharing that with all of you. Um, but it was incredible. So a little bit of background is full body motion capture. So like where you're moving around, um, that is very hard to do because generally to have good sense of depth, you need a lot information from cameras, which for a long time, the easiest way to do this processing wise was to use markers on your body that these cameras could easily track. So if you've ever heard of Vicon or OptiTrack, those are the two big companies that do this. So if
So when you're
you
talking
look
about markers, are you talking about like a bodysuit or gloves or
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
things
So
like that so that the
OptiTrack,
camera can see it and know
yeah,
where the different parts of your body are, like how the VR headsets work.
yeah. So yeah, they OptiTrack is probably the most well-known one, and they are expensive, like very expensive. A
Yeah. The suits are
I
expensive too.
oh yeah, yeah,
They're all the pieces are expensive.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't even remember if they yeah, so like the suit without anything
without the
is
sensors.
yes, this is literally just a piece of fabric you're putting on and then putting sensors on it
Uh,
is already 300 ish
yeah.
dollars. Then gloves, then you have to actually get the markers, which the
Ugh.
markers are um these little balls.
So you stick
These
them on the
add up.
suit,
Yeah.
and the more
And
the merrier, right? The more points you have, the
yep,
better it will
yeah.
see you.
Yeah, and you need these marker bases on this suit. So It adds up.
On the
A
suit? Wait, where does
Yeah.
that go, that thing? That thing's like a
So
thing.
this sticks on the suit using usually Velcro. Then you put one of these balls on that little post. Every single
Oh, every
subcomponent
ball has a
costs
post?
money. Yes, everything costs money and a lot.
So, really, you should just be 3D printing all that stuff, right? You 3D print your
Uh,
own stuff,
yeah, or the
right?
balls you can't. These are retroreflective things.
Can't
Though
can't
you
you
could
just Velcro it on? Why would you have to put it on that stand?
it or
Anyway, the whole thing's ridiculous
yeah,
and we don't need it anymore, right? So
yeah.
let's
It,
that's
it's
why we've got
It's
markerless now.
expensive. Like, we're talking a good setup with this is anywhere from, like,
It's
50,000
it's thousands of dollars.
to,
Yeah,
like,
and that's for,
millions.
like, 1 person or 2 people or
Yeah,
something. If you've
yeah,
actually trying to do it, and Rainer's letting us know for the best tracking, you still need it, okay.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but
It's
anyway, tell us about the markerless thing because it was
yeah.
pretty incredible
So,
what you were showing me. It was
yeah,
pretty darn good.
like or actually, the funny thing is proper Steam trackers, like, on your headset actually have higher tracking accuracy than these do. Um, if you do everything correctly. Like, anytime you want higher than, like, 2 millimeters of precision,
Uh-huh.
you're going to have a bad time no matter what tech you're using. But one of the companies at, um, at
At GDC.
GDC AR-51 was demoing markerless motion capture, which they were doing just using similar-ish camera, like high frame rate cameras. Um, they're um, but the big thing is they're using AI to help track where you are so that they can then render it in different so like and the thing is you can apply this really easily and it's very cost efficient. It's more expensive than the IMU based motion capture which so a IMU based motion capture suit um is generally about $2,000 to $5,000. But that's per suit, which you need one suit per person. And they have a inherent flaw of drift. Drift is
Drift?
like
That's a basketball game. You
so
can't have
or
drift.
yeah. So let me find their yeah. So
It's really
this
funny when
is
you
a
see drift
demo.
too. It's like somebody's just avatar just
Yeah, yeah.
kind of
Things
floats
float
away.
away. I've
You're
helped
like,
people build m IMU-based system before, and they're like, "Oh, drift won't be a problem." They get their algorithm running, and within 3 seconds, their hand just floats off, and it's, like, gone, and it's like, "Yeah, it's a problem."
so
Um,
that would be the system not understanding in the 3D space exactly where their avatar hand should be,
or or
right?
it has to do with the Earth having this thing called a magnetic field, and most objects in modern everyday society have these things called electronics in them, which IMUs use a magnetometer to do the full 6 degree of freedom tracking. So they use a accelerometer to do roll, pitch, and yaw, then a magnetometer to do X, Y, Z translation. And the thing is, that magnetometer gets affected by any magnetic field.
So after all
Or
that, the Earth's gravitational force is just gonna toss it all out the window
it
anyway?
I mean, generally you can correct for the Earth, but you can't
So we get
correct
a big
for being
magnet, and
y
we have a
I
magnet
I
on one side of the house.
yes, or if your house has metal in it that attracts a magnet, because a magnetometer uses a tiny little incredibly sensitive
So
magnet
is there any
setup.
way to fix it? I don't get how you're supposed to
Yeah,
fix it,
so
because 'cause we're not
there
getting
is
rid of the Earth's magnetic field, like,
you
that's
can
a thing.
using a thing called a Faraday cage. But the problem
But,
is
yeah, you're not
then
gonna have you can't do your VR. What are you gonna do, go into a Faraday cage every time you use
maybe
VR? Yeah, good luck with that. That's
yeah.
not really
Um
a solution, but
no,
yeah.
but you could theoretically use multi-precision magnetometers where they're referencing each other's local fields. But you get into all these
It
extra
sounds like you just
costs.
wanna take it out of the picture. You just don't
Yeah, pretty
want it
much.
to be able to pick up on it.
Yeah, you want to take it out of the picture. You don't want to wear a suit with all these trackers. So that's where markerless is such a big deal. So like
So talk about you actually were in the booth at
yes,
GDC, and you were talking about
yes,
how they were basically tracking you from the moment you walked into the
yes,
booth. Tell
yeah.
us a little bit more
So
about. Do you have
literally
your video to show? Did you bring your video to
uh,
show, or
I I needed it
okay, it's
didn't
okay.
upload.
We'll link
I'll
to it in the
yeah,
description later.
yeah.
Okay. But
Um
yeah, let us know. Tell us more about that. That was sounded really
yeah.
interesting.
So it was quite amazing. Just they had a booth set up with like 14 cameras, I think it was. Each of these cameras is only about 800 to $1,000. All those were plugged into a computer on the ground in the corner.
Wait, wait,
But
wait. How many do you need to do
it
this?
you can scale up or down depending on how well you want stuff tracked. You
Well,
can
at
go
$800 a
down
pop, the average person is maybe gonna be able to
or
buy maybe 3 of them at the most, right? 3 or 4 of
or
them.
but that's the cameras currently.
Uh-huh.
They're
So
this
the price will go
and
down hopefully.
oh, yes,
Oh,
very,
okay.
very fast.
But probably
Um,
you need at least 3, or what are you thinking? I mean, the
a lot
VR,
of
the Quest needs
these
3. Well, when it had
yeah.
the sensors, it wanted 3 of them.
So these AI algorithms are getting good enough that you can use a single webcam and a mirror. So
So
that
you don't need an $800 camera, or you do need an
no,
$800 camera? Oh,
no,
okay.
it that is just because if you want a really professional setup that's tracking at high frame rate and has like sub millimeter like has millimeter
So
accuracy.
so the
It,
AR-51 system has that.
yes,
Okay.
but and it's scalable. Like you can use like 4 cameras for a like for what a normal person might have at home, which might be a 10 by 10 area.
Okay, so
Um
probably 4 cameras. So it's still right
yeah,
now, that would still be, you know,
a few $1,000s.
$3,200. Yeah.
But the thing
What's
is
the webcam mirror thing you're talking about then?
so right now, part of the reason using AI for this stuff is so great is these algorithms are changing just as fast as all the others. So everyone in VR has wanted easy, cheap, full body motion tracking for years. And about a year ago, someone was like, let me just point a webcam at a mirror and then run a AI algorithm to figure out what the person is doing. And it worked. And then some people have played around with having a few webcams or a few mirrors to get better 3D positional accuracy. But everyone, all
But what
these
software
companies
is it
are
using at that point with the mirror and the webcam? What
so
software
that
would you be using? If I was gonna go set it up right now in my house, what
that's
software would I use with
usually it's like usually like a Git you go on GitHub, it's usually I think Python or It's just a little app running that is then sending data to whatever motion capture, like it's sending it to either VR chat, Unity, or Unreal, which all of those can pick
To
up.
make an object out of it. To
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's um but the thing I really loved about AR-51's thing is it it just is immediately tracking you, and it can track as many objects as it can really process, which it they talked about that on the first day they had a little event there, it would tracking 20 people in their booth
Did it show you the
accurately.
model that was being generated from that?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, it was. That's the other cool thing. They were showing you in real time what it was seeing. The thing is as more people go in, processing increases, but it's
quality
dynamic.
goes down. Oh, the quality doesn't go
Not
down the more people?
quality, the frame rate goes
Oh,
down. So
okay. It's kinda
they
quality.
they said that if you have like 14 cameras and a decent computer setup, like we're still talking a like $5,000 to $8,000 computer, but it's or more if you really want to go ham. But generally it was they said that their setup currently with their 14 cameras was running at 9 milliseconds latency for tracking the entire area, which this was a 10-foot by 20-foot area. And they said it doesn't increase to um like 12 or 13 milliseconds till you have like 6 or 7 people, which for VR, the threshold for good smooth movement is 11 milliseconds, which is 90 frames per second. 9 milliseconds is right around 120 frames per second. So they were, and if you're ever doing something like live streams on YouTube, you only need to do 60 frames per second, which means you can have like I can't remember if it's like 16 or something milliseconds latency. It's
But you were saying
I
the
can't
frame rate could be
remember, but
affected. What I meant by quality was it just not looking as good. The frame rate affects how it looks. So
yeah,
the more but
yeah,
that's just if you
but
had a live scan with 20 people, but that was with the 14 cameras, right?
yes,
That
yes.
situation, yeah.
But
So this is new
yeah,
though. It hasn't had the
yeah.
price hasn't had a chance to go down yet.
Yeah, and it
And,
will
it
go down
will.
fast. So both the price and the processing requirements, because as these algorithms improve, you can do it on lower and lower end machines. And as cameras become cheaper and better, you can do it on lower and lower end cameras. And those cameras are going to be better cameras than what they used to have. So, um, right now, like a lot of people at home, they still have webcams, which like this, I'm using Logitech Brio 4K webcam, which is okay. But this camera came out 10 years ago, I think, at this point, or 9 years ago. And up until very recently, it was one of the only 4K webcams, and I'm not even running it at 4K. I'm running it at 1080p 60 with HDR.
Right. It
But
doesn't really do
yeah,
4K. It doesn't really stream 4K,
yeah, it's but
but it's what
cameras
everybody
are
used.
changing. Like
Yeah.
in the past couple of months, a company called OSB Bot released a thing called the Tail Air, which is a 4K PTZ webcam. Which PTZ means it's robotic. It can follow you around. It's pan tilt zoom. Um and that thing is amazing. It's about $500, but it's literally better than PTZ cameras that conference centers pay $5,000 to $6,000 for, and it's tiny, and
And how much is
it's
it? It's
about $500, and th that also has AI tracking built into it. They'll follow you around, and it also has gesture-based control, so you can turn it on, off, um, have it track, have it switch scenes, do different things. Like I plan to get one probably because it it's so cool, and using AI for all these camera things is very useful for both just like making your conference or like podcast setup better, but this stuff also is applying to the very high end cameras that they are currently using in motion capture. Um and It's quite amazing the level. So let me show a little bit of AR-51's markerless motion capture. Um, so this is so to give you an idea of what's going on is these two people are in VR. You can on the bottom right screen see the perspective of one of the people, and on the bottom right see kind of a world perspective, and these people are playing rock paper scissors, and it's tracking them in real time without them wearing anything. It's so the finger tracking is being done by the uh not the Vision Pros, they're wearing the Quests. That but their movement, their real world positioning was being done using the cameras around. So um AR-51 has um let me find the other cool video of um it running in um so these two people, so they're in a capture studio, which this capture studio looks kind of crazy, or VR space, but down on this TV or laptop actually. Oh, I know that laptop. There that's what is going on in the scene. And you will see in a sec they're going to get up, and it's still tracking them um as they move around without them wearing anything. And it is for it to be even this good was basically impossible a few years ago. Probably even a year ago, that would have been like substantially more expensive than it is now.
all
Yeah,
right. Well,
so
this
you
is
can
go
see
ahead.
people just running on in the booth, and they're all being tracked. So that is pretty amazing to just like walk on and off and be tracked. Um, which a rate like it seems like a absurdly high-end rig of this technology, it would only be about 20 to $40,000, which is a lot less than marker motion capture. And the thing is, that also means if you're in like the game dev industry or any industry that just needs to rent this stuff or rent a studio, the studio rental prices will be much lower. Um, because very few people need these setups at all times. So most
Yeah.
people rent them, and a lower cost setup means it probably will have a lower rental cost, as well as you don't have the suits to worry about and the suit cost. It's literally once you
And
have it set
the
up, it has no more costs at
yeah,
all. And it actually might, like, as the algorithms get better, you don't really even need to upgrade in the for a very long time until,
it can
like,
get
a
better and
camera
better with
dies.
software. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's, like, the crazy thing. At this point, a lot of this hardware doesn't really need to improve. It's just let the software improve.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
So
Ryan, thank you so
yeah.
much. Looking forward, what is the next thing coming, do you think, down the pike that you're excited about? Just before we
So
wrap
the
it up.
next conference I'm going to go to is Display Week in May in San Francisco, which is the big display technology conference. That is where a lot of the big display manufacturers show a lot of their research. So
Mhm.
these are things like TVs and phone screens and stuff of things that aren't coming out for 5 years.
So what of that
Like
stuff are you looking forward to
yeah.
seeing? Be specific. I'm trying to find a specific new
So
thing that's coming that maybe you might see there.
I'm hoping to see a lot more, like, I I I view independent 3D, displays. Like, um, we're getting close to a point where real-time holography and, like, certain types of three-dimensional viewable content is going to be much easier to display and will actually look good. It won't be like wearing the blue and red glasses at the cinemas. It will be view independent, which means you don't have to be in a specific spot for the effect to work. Um, and a lot of that has to do with processing and light field um things, as well as a lot of upcoming VR displays. Last year when I went, I found a bunch of different technologies that I would like. I want to smash these all together because
Well, you
they
may get your wish.
yeah, yeah,
That seems to be
maybe
what's happening is a lot of things are kind of
yeah.
combining or their ways of doing
Yeah,
different things.
so having better displays is something very important for VR. I mean, if any of you've tried the Apple Vision Pro, it is nice, but it also still fails in a number of visual tests, mainly brightness. And that's been a big issue with VR and actually just displays in general. If anyone, even with a really nice phone, has ever brought their phone out in like direct sunlight and it trying to view anything, they're like, oh God, I can't see this. And that's because our displays can't get bright enough. Even though our phone screens are actually better than
Right.
most
That's why you
high
put
end
your jacket
TVs.
around in the
Yeah,
dark, and then you
yeah,
can see your
you like
phone.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
um,
great. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on. It's been a great show. Everybody remember to subscribe, and, we'll see you soon,
oh, yeah,
and, thanks so much for coming on the show, Ryan. Really appreciate
yep,
it.
I'll be sharing all the links to all of this stuff shortly,
Yes.
and
Ryan has
like
spreadsheets basically that go with his shows just to make sure to have direct links to everything that was covered, and we'll have that up in the
yep,
next probably 24 hours. All right. Thank you
yep.
so much, everybody.